some trucks aren't just vehicles. They're legends rolling down the highway, spitting in the face of time, rust, and the junkyard waiting at the end of the road. While most rides get traded in long before the odometer rolls over 6 digits, these beasts keep charging past 7. Can a pickup really survive 1,000,000 miles and still start on the first crank? Buckle up, because the stories we've dug up will make you question everything. 1991, Chevrolet C1500 Silverado. Every truck guy has heard whispers about it. But yes, it's real. The 1991 Chevrolet C1500 that clocked 1,000,000 miles with its original owner, Victor Shepard. This wasn't some pampered Sunday cruiser. This Silverado was a true workhorse, pounding the pavement for decades. Long commutes, hauling, cross-country trips. It did it all without begging for early retirement. So how did it survive? Victor wasn't a mechanic magician, just a man religious about oil changes, filters, and preventative care. Chevrolet itself even took notice. When he finally handed over the keys, the company put the truck on display as living proof of durability. The paint had faded. The seats had seen better days. But under the hood, that small block V8 was still loyal, still firing, still moving. Imagine pulling up next to this truck at a stoplight. On the outside, it looked like an ordinary Chevy you'd find at a used lot. But behind that odometer was a story no shiny new model could touch. Trucks like this are why people still swear by the older GM designs. They weren't overcomplicated. They weren't loaded with electronics, and they didn't mind being pushed to the absolute limit. 1,000,000 miles later, the Silverado didn't just prove a point, it became a symbol. A symbol that with the right maintenance and a little mechanical luck, even the simplest pickup can write itself into history. If that isn't truck immortality, I don't know what is. 2007 Toyota Tundra. Now let's flip the script. Everyone knows Toyota has a reputation for reliability, but one 2007 Tundra blew that into orbit. Bought brand new by, you guessed it, Victor Shepard. This Tundra became a rolling case study in longevity. He racked up 1,000,000 miles in less than 10 years. Do the math. That's 100,000 miles every single year. Most cars beg for mercy at 200,000. What made this story different is Toyota's reaction. When Victor finally parted ways with the Tundra, Toyota didn't just pat him on the back. They flew the truck straight to their technical center. Engineers tore it down, studied every bolt, gasket, and gear like archaeologists unearthing a fossil. And the verdict? The 4.7-liter V8 still had strong compression, the transmission was intact, and the truck was, astonishingly, still drivable. Inside, the story showed too. The seats had that lived-in sag. The paint looked tired, but the bones were unbreakable. Shepard didn't do anything wild. No crazy rebuilds, no exotic parts swaps. Just religious maintenance and steady driving habits. So, what's the takeaway? While some argue American trucks dominate longevity, the Tundra proved imports could play the same game and even outlast many domestic competitors. That's why this Tundra isn't just a truck. It's a legend that still sparks debates at gas stations, garages, and forums. Can your ride break 1,000,000? This Toyota already did, and it didn't even break a sweat. 2006 Chevrolet Silverado 3500 HD. If one Chevy can cross 1,000,000 miles, why not another? Meet the 2006 Chevrolet Silverado 3500 HD. A fleet truck that shattered the odometer doing what it was designed for, hard labor. This wasn't a weekend toy or a road trip buddy. It was a workhorse in the purest sense, hauling loads, making deliveries, and facing abuse most family trucks will never see. When trucks live in commercial fleets, they don't get to slack off. They run long days, carry heavy weight, and rack up mileage faster than you can say oil change. But this Silverado didn't just survive, it thrived. The secret wasn't a magical engine. It was consistent care, timely part swaps, and the fact that GM designed the Duramax diesel and Allison transmission combo like a tank. Sure, along the way, it went through brakes, shocks, and a handful of transmissions. But here's the thing. The backbone of the truck, the frame, the power plant, the spirit never quit. And that's what separates legends from landfill. Drivers in the fleet even said they'd fight over who got this truck for the day. Not because it was pretty, it wasn't, but because it was reliable, predictable, and tough. 1,000,000 miles later, it proved something critical. Sometimes the ugliest trucks with the hardest jobs end up writing the best stories. You don't have to shine to last. 2001 Dodge Ram 3500 Cummins. Ask any truck fan what engine they'd bet on for eternal life, and chances are they'll say the Cummins. The 2001 Dodge Ram 3500 with a Cummins under the hood is living proof. Farmers and haulers across America swear by them, and for good reason. This truck clocked 1,000,000 miles and still had torques to spare. The story goes that this Ram wasn't treated like a museum piece. It worked fields, hauled livestock, and pulled trailers heavier than most trucks would dare. Day after day, year after year, it kept firing up. And the Cummins engine? That straight-six diesel is practically folklore at this point. Built simple, built strong, built to last. But here's what makes this story even better. The owner didn't pamper it with fancy upgrades or baby it in the garage. He fixed what broke, kept oil changes on schedule, and kept driving. No drama, no glory, just grit. And that's what makes it so satisfying. Even after 1,000,000 miles, people who rode in it said it didn't feel like a tired old farm truck. It still pulled steady. The gears still shifted clean. And it had that unmistakable diesel grunt. The paint may have faded. The body may have picked up dents from years of farm life. But the heart of the beast never gave out. This Ram proved what Cummins fans have been saying for decades. When you want a truck that'll outlive you, get the diesel, keep it simple, and never underestimate farm-tested toughness. 1,000,000 miles later, this Dodge was still kicking up dirt like the day it rolled off the line. 1989 Toyota pickup. Before Toyota called it the Tacoma, there was the simple, boxy, bulletproof Toyota pickup. And one 1989 model turned into a survivor story for the ages. While the odometer only had space for 6 digits, this little truck blew past them so many times that Toyota themselves confirmed it crossed 1,000,000 miles. This wasn't a fancy ride. No leather seats, no plush interiors. Just a bare-bones machine built to run forever. And it did. Owners of these older Toyotas will tell you the same thing. They rust before they quit. But in this case, careful maintenance and a dry climate let the truck stay on the road long enough to write its name into history. The original 4-cylinder engine just kept ticking. Timing belts, clutches, and suspension pieces were swapped out over the years, but the core remained. And because it was small, light, and ridiculously simple, mechanics could fix it for cheap, which kept it alive even longer. Imagine the looks at gas stations when the owner explained the mileage. Most people brag about hitting 200,000. This Toyota laughed at that and kept rolling 5 times over. In a world where cars are loaded with fragile electronics and throwaway parts, the 1989 Toyota pickup proved the opposite. Built simple, built tough, and driven with just enough care, even the humblest truck can last longer than most marriages. If that isn't a 1,000,000-mile flex, I don't know what is. 2004 Ford F-250 Super Duty Power Stroke. Heavy hauling isn't kind to trucks. Mountains, steep grades, and endless weight breakdown machines faster than city driving ever will. Yet one 2004 Ford F-250 Super Duty with a Power Stroke diesel didn't just survive logging country, it thrived all the way to 1,000,000 miles. This truck belonged to a small logging crew that demanded everything from it. Pulling trailers stacked with timber, creeping down dirt roads slick with mud, and grinding through long winters. That environment kills most pickups in half the time. But the 6.0-liter Power Stroke, often criticized for reliability issues, became the ultimate underdog. With proper maintenance and some timely repairs, it just kept going. The key wasn't luck, it was discipline. Oil changes were done on the dot. Filters replaced before they clogged. And when parts wore out, the crew didn't hesitate to swap them. That combination of consistent care and a strong chassis turned this workhorse into an unstoppable legend. By the time the odometer crossed the million-mile mark, the body carried scars of its life in the woods, dents, scrapes, and plenty of rust. But the truck never lost its stride. It still fired up every morning, ready to drag more logs out of the forest. In an industry where trucks are just another tool, this F-250 stood out. It proved that even models with shaky reputations can shine when cared for. Million-mile logging duty? That's as real as toughness gets. 1999 Ford F, 357.3 power stroke. If you ask truck fans which Ford diesel they trust, the 7.3 power stroke always comes up. And for good reason. A 1999 Ford F-350 with this engine hit 1 million miles, cementing the 7.3's reputation as one of the toughest engines ever dropped in a pickup. The story is familiar. One owner, years of steady use, and relentless attention to maintenance. The 7.3 wasn't fancy. It was loud, smoky, and not the most fuel efficient, but it was brutally reliable. Truckers and farmers loved it because it had just enough electronics to modernize it, but not enough to complicate repairs. This particular F-350 worked in heavy towing, pulling equipment across states for contractors. The frame groaned, the suspension wore down, and the paint baked in the sun. But the heart never quit. Even after rolling past the million-mile milestone, compression tests showed the engine was still healthy. It became the kind of truck people talk about at diners. You know the line, "Those old 7.3s will run forever." This truck proved the saying wasn't exaggeration, it was fact. Some pickups are loved because they're stylish or luxurious. This one was loved because it refused to die. Simple as that. 1990 GMC Sierra 2500. The early 90s GMC Sierra wasn't the flashiest truck. Boxy, plain, and built for work, it didn't scream future legend. But one 1990 Sierra 2500 broke every assumption, cruising well past 1.2 million miles under the hands of its original owner. What's impressive isn't just the number, it's how the truck was used. This wasn't a showpiece parked in a garage. It was driven daily, hauling gear, pulling trailers, and tackling the grind of rural life. And through it all, the Sierra became more than transportation. It became family. The secret sauce? That good old small block V8 paired with a tough automatic transmission. Add in consistent oil changes, cooling system checks, and suspension overhauls, and you had a recipe for longevity. The owner admitted the body rusted faster than the engine gave out, which makes sense. Metal panels don't have the same grit as old GM drivetrains. What's wild is how ordinary the Sierra looked. People walked past it without a second glance, never realizing the odometer was hiding a number most trucks never dream of. And that's the beauty of it. Sometimes greatness hides in plain sight. The Sierra 2500 didn't just last, it outlasted generations of newer models that promised more but delivered less. 1 million+ miles later, this boxy truck proved the old school still rules. 2003 Chevy Silverado 2500 HD Duramax. When Chevy introduced the Duramax diesel, people knew it had potential. But no one expected it to become the backbone of so many million-mile stories. 2003. Silverado 2500 HD became a poster child for durability, crossing 1 million miles while pulling long-haul trailers across the country. This wasn't a commuter truck. It was built for the grind, hauling heavy loads day in and day out on highways that stretched coast to coast. The owner, a professional hauler, treated it like a business partner, not just a ride. That meant strict maintenance schedules, meticulous logbooks, and a willingness to replace parts before they failed. By the time the odometer rolled past 7 digits, the Silverado had seen multiple transmissions, new injectors, and plenty of suspension rebuilds. But the 6.6-liter Duramax engine itself, still strong, still pulling, still proving why diesel loyalists swear by it. The truck wasn't pretty. Paint chips, seat tears, and a cracked dash gave away its age. But when you're hauling for a living, pretty doesn't matter. Performance does. And this Silverado delivered in spades. 1,000,000 miles later, it stood as living proof that when GM paired the Duramax with the Allison transmission, they built something ready for the long game. This wasn't just a truck. It was a road warrior. 1992 Toyota Tacoma. Early model. Before the Tacoma became a household name, Toyota released early versions that set the stage. One 1992 model shocked everyone when it crossed the 1,000,000-mile threshold with its original engine still intact. How does a compact pickup, not a heavy-duty hauler, achieve what most giant diesels do? Simplicity. The early Toyota trucks were light, underpowered by today's standards, but engineered with precision. That 4-cylinder engine was nearly unbreakable, sipping fuel while chugging along for decades. The truck was used for everything: errands, long road trips, hauling modest loads, and it never complained. Sure, it needed clutches, brakes, and suspension rebuilds, but the big components never gave up. The owner said the key was never overworking it. Drive steady, stay on top of maintenance, and the truck rewarded you with loyalty. What really made this story shine was the reaction from Toyota fans. They always brag about their trucks lasting forever. But here was hard proof. 1,000,000 miles and still roadworthy. It wasn't just folklore, it was fact. Visually, the truck told its story. Faded paint, a few dents, and an interior that looked like a time capsule from the early 90s. Yet it still fired up like clockwork. The 1,000,000-mile Tacoma proved that you don't need size or brute strength to make history. Sometimes the little guys can go the distance too, leaving bigger rivals scratching their heads. 1996 Ford F-150. The Ford F-150 has been America's best-selling truck for decades, but most of them live normal lives. Commuter duty, weekend trips to the hardware store, maybe the occasional tow. Not this one. A 1996 F-150, tucked, away in the Midwest, quietly cruised past 1,000,000 miles and proved that even the everyman version of Ford's icon could last forever if you treated it right. The story behind this truck is classic middle America. One owner bought it new, used it for daily driving, family trips, and plenty of hauling. Winters weren't kind, with salt eating away at the rocker panels and fenders, but the owner kept the frame and drivetrain in check. Oil changes came like clockwork, and minor repairs were tackled before they turned into disasters. By the time the odometer rolled into 6 figures, the F-150 wasn't some restored gem. It was dented, rusty, and patched up with more than a little body filler. But the 4.9-liter inline-6 engine inside? Still running strong. Those engines were famous for being simple, torquey, and nearly impossible to kill. Neighbors laughed when the owner claimed it would last forever. Then, years later, when it clicked past 1,000,000, nobody was laughing anymore. The F-150 may not have been the most glamorous truck on the block, but it was the most dependable, and that's why this Midwest survivor earns its place among the 1,000,000-mile greats. 2011 Ram 3500 Cummins. Most 1,000,000-mile stories come from trucks built decades ago. But modern trucks can still pull it off. And one 2011 Ram 3500 with a Cummins diesel proved it. Used by a hotshot hauler who crisscrossed the United States towing heavy trailers, this beast racked up over 1.2 million miles in just a handful of years. Think about that. While most people drive 15,000 miles a year, this truck was logging nearly 10 times that. Highways became its second home, and every mile was loaded with cargo. Yet the Cummins engine kept churning, shrugging off distances that should have sent it to the scrapyard. The truck did need work along the way. Transmissions were replaced, injectors swapped, and suspension components rebuilt. But that's the nature of million-mile machines. They aren't flawless, they're persistent. What mattered is that the core engine never gave up. It just kept pulling, mile after relentless mile. By the time it hit 1.2 million, the paint was chipped, the seats worn flat, and the dashboard full of cracks. But none of that mattered. To the driver, it was more than a truck. It was a business partner, a breadwinner, and proof that modern Rams, when paired with a Cummins, can still play the long game. The Ram 3500 didn't just survive. It dominated. 1 million-plus miles later, it reminded the world that some trucks aren't built for showrooms. They're built for the open road, and they'll keep hauling until the wheels fall off. So what have we learned? Million-mile trucks aren't miracles. They're the reward for discipline, smart driving, and engines built tougher than time. From Toyotas that outlived their own legends to Fords and Chevys that worked themselves into history, these machines prove that durability isn't dead. Which one impressed you most? Drop your pick in the comments, hit subscribe, and share with that friend who swears their truck is indestructible. Maybe it's got another 1,000,000 miles left.